The paycheck hit on Friday. $60,000 a year. At 27 years old, that sounds like you're doing pretty well. Not rich, obviously, but not broke either. You have a job, a decent apartment, a car in the driveway, and enough money to go out with friends once in a while. Then Monday comes around, and you check your bank account. Rent took $1,700. The car payment took $500. Insurance took another $180. Groceries, gas, phone, subscriptions, eating out, and a few purchases you barely remember made their way through the account. And somehow, you're already thinking about the next paycheck. There isn't a financial emergency. Nobody stole your money. You didn't buy a yacht. You didn't blow your entire salary at a casino. You just lived a normal American life. And that's exactly what makes the first $10,000 so difficult. Because for a lot of people, the problem isn't that they don't make enough money to save anything. The problem is that their lifestyle has already figured out how to spend almost everything they make. And the strange part is that the more money they earn, the easier it can become to keep spending it. Meet Jake. Jake is 29, works a normal full-time job, makes around $60,000 a year, and lives in a decent apartment outside a major American city. He's not financially reckless. In fact, if you looked at his life from the outside, you'd probably say he's doing fine. He pays his bills on time. He has a credit card. He has a reliable car. He orders food sometimes, takes a vacation once a year, and doesn't think twice about spending $15 or $20 when he's out with friends. Jake's goal is simple. He wants to save his first $10,000. Not $100,000. Not $1 million. Just $10,000 sitting in an account that he doesn't need to touch. It sounds achievable, but after several months, Jake has $1,200. Then $1,700. Then an unexpected car repair brings him right back down. So he tries again. And this time, something happens that millions of people experience without realizing it. Jake gets a raise. His income goes up. And somehow his savings don't. At first, he thinks the raise will fix everything. More money coming in should mean more money staying in the bank. But a bigger paycheck creates room. And people are very good at filling empty room. The apartment that was good enough suddenly feels a little cramped. The old car starts looking embarrassing next to what coworkers drive. Eating out twice a week doesn't seem unreasonable anymore. And that $10 coffee that used to feel unnecessary, now it feels like a normal part of the morning. Jake didn't make one terrible financial decision. He simply upgraded his life one small decision at a time. That's lifestyle inflation. And it's one of the biggest reasons your first $10,000 can feel like it's always moving farther away. The problem is that lifestyle inflation doesn't feel like inflation. Nobody wakes up and says, "Today I'm going to increase my monthly expenses by $600. Instead, it happens in tiny steps. A slightly nicer apartment, a newer phone, more delivery, better restaurants, a few more subscriptions, more weekend plans. Each individual upgrade looks harmless. Put them together, and your future starts getting the bill. But here's where Jake's story gets interesting. Because his biggest expense isn't his morning coffee. It's the car. Jake has a $500 monthly car payment. And when he bought it, $500 didn't sound outrageous. That's because Americans have been trained to look at cars through the monthly payment. Can I afford $400 a month? What about $500? Maybe $600? But the car doesn't actually cost $500. The payment is only one piece of the decision. There's insurance, gas, oil changes, tires, maintenance, repairs, registration, interest, and then there's depreciation, which is the money disappearing from the value of the car while Jake is still paying for it. Suddenly, that affordable $500 payment is attached to a much bigger financial commitment. And this is where the math gets interesting. Imagine Jake's car payment is $500. Add $180 for insurance, around $150 for gas, and average another $100 or so over time for maintenance, registration, and repairs. Now his car is costing roughly $930 a month. That's more than $11,000 a year. And suddenly, saving the first $10,000 doesn't look like a simple budgeting problem. It's a lifestyle problem. Jake could spend the next year trying to save an extra $200 a month. Or he could eventually make one major decision that changes his monthly cash flow by hundreds of dollars. That's the difference between obsessing over tiny expenses and understanding the structure of your lifestyle. And the car isn't even the biggest expense. Housing can be. Jake started out paying $1,400 in rent. Then his income increased. He decided he deserved something nicer, so he moved into a $1,700 apartment. Only $300 more. That's how the decision felt. $300. But $300 every month is $3,600 every year. And over 3 years, that's $10,800. That's basically the entire milestone Jake is trying to reach. The scary part is that the apartment doesn't feel like a $10,800 decision. It feels like a $300 decision. That's how lifestyle inflation hides. It turns large annual costs into small monthly decisions. And once those monthly decisions become normal, going backward feels painful. Jake doesn't feel like he's living extravagantly. He just doesn't want to go back. That's the psychological trap. When your income rises, your old lifestyle starts feeling cheap. Your old apartment feels too small. Your old car feels outdated. Your old restaurants feel boring. The things you once considered luxuries quietly become your baseline. And now you need more income just to feel normal. This is why earning more money doesn't automatically make someone wealthy. If your expenses rise almost as fast as your income, your financial breathing room barely changes. The paycheck got bigger, but the gap didn't. And that gap is what matters. Because wealth doesn't come from how much money passes through your bank account. It comes from how much stays there. Then there are the expenses that don't look dangerous at all. The $7 coffee, the $15 lunch, the $30 delivery order, the $12 subscription you forgot you had, the $40 Amazon purchase that seemed useful at the time, the $60 spent on Saturday because everyone was going out. None of these purchases are going to destroy Jake financially. And that's important. The goal isn't to convince him that buying coffee is irresponsible. The problem is what happens when dozens of completely reasonable purchases become one enormous monthly number. A $7 coffee isn't the issue. $7 here, $15 there, $30 after a long day, another $40 because shipping was free if you spent more. The brain doesn't experience these purchases as one giant expense. It experiences them separately. That's why small spending can be so difficult to control. Jake doesn't remember spending $400 on random convenience purchases. He remembers the coffee, the lunch, the delivery, the shirt, the movie, the weekend. Each one had a reason. Together, they quietly became a payment on a lifestyle he never consciously decided to buy. And then there's something even more expensive than convenience. Time. Jake works all day. He gets home tired. Cooking takes an hour. Cleaning takes time. Grocery shopping takes time. So he opens a food delivery app. $30 later, dinner is at the door. And honestly, sometimes that's completely reasonable. The problem begins when convenience stops being an occasional choice and becomes the default. That's the American convenience tax. You pay a little extra because you're tired. A little extra because you're busy. A little extra because you don't want to drive. A little extra because you don't want to cook. A little extra because you don't want to wait. And none of those decisions feels financially significant. But convenience has a strange ability to become invisible. Jake isn't thinking, I'm paying $300 this month for convenience. He's thinking, I'm too tired to cook tonight. That's a very different psychological decision. And this is why saving money isn't always about discipline. Sometimes it's about changing the defaults in your life. Because if the easiest option is also the most expensive option, tired you is going to keep choosing it. But Jake discovers another hidden cost. His friends. One Friday night, his friend group decides to go to a new restaurant. It's $60 a person. Jake looks at his bank account. He knows he's trying to save, but saying no feels weird. So he goes. The next weekend, there's a birthday, then drinks. Then somebody suggests a weekend trip, then a concert, then dinner after the concert. None of these events are outrageous. They're normal. That's what makes them powerful. Nobody wants to be the person constantly saying, I can't afford that. Nobody wants to explain their bank account every time their friends make plans. And sometimes, spending money isn't really about the thing you're buying. It's about belonging. It's about avoiding the feeling that you're falling behind. And that pressure gets even stronger when everyone around you appears to be doing better. You see someone buying a new car. You see a friend traveling to Europe. You see coworkers going to expensive restaurants. You see someone posting a new apartment on Instagram. You don't see their credit card balance. You don't see their monthly payment. You don't see the amount sitting in their savings account. You only see the lifestyle. And humans are terrible at comparing their financial reality with somebody else's highlight reel. Jake starts wondering if he's behind, so he spends a little more to feel like he's keeping up. And suddenly, saving becomes emotionally uncomfortable. Because saving $500 means saying no to something today. Spending $500 gives you something you can see right now. That's where present bias enters the picture. The human brain naturally gives more weight to rewards that happen immediately. A vacation next month feels real. $10,000 sitting in a savings account 2 years from now feels abstract. A new phone feels real. Financial security feels invisible. Dinner tonight feels real. Having a larger emergency fund feels like something that belongs to the future. And the future keeps losing arguments against the present. Then credit makes the argument even easier. Jake sees something he wants. Maybe it's a new TV. Maybe furniture. Maybe a vacation. The price is $1,200. That feels expensive. But then the website shows the monthly payment. Only $80 a month. And suddenly, the purchase feels smaller. That's one of the most powerful tricks in modern consumer psychology. The price didn't change. The framing did. Instead of thinking, do I want to spend $1,200? Jake thinks, can I handle another $80 a month? And $80 doesn't feel dangerous. But that's the problem with monthly payment thinking. You aren't only spending today's money. You're committing tomorrow's money. And tomorrow's paycheck already has a job. Rent, car, insurance, groceries, utilities. And now this. Then another payment. Then another. Eventually, Jake's paycheck isn't really his anymore. A large part of it has already been promised to decisions he made months or years earlier. And that's when the first $10,000 becomes incredibly difficult. Because saving isn't just about earning money. It's about having enough of your future income left uncommitted to your past decisions. But here's where things get even more interesting. Even if Jake cuts the unnecessary spending, gets serious about his car, and stops upgrading his apartment, there's still another reason he might struggle. His brain. Jake gets a bonus at work. He receives an extra $1,500. For a moment, he thinks, this could finally push me closer to $10,000. Then he remembers how hard the year has been. He tells himself he deserves something. So he buys a new phone, goes out for a nice dinner, books a weekend away, and puts the rest into savings. He doesn't feel irresponsible. He feels rewarded. That's the I deserve it effect. And it's incredibly human. You work hard, so you want something in return. You had a stressful month, so you order dinner. You got a raise, so you upgrade your lifestyle. You hit a savings milestone, so you celebrate by spending some of it. The problem isn't enjoying your money. Money is supposed to improve your life. The problem is when every increase in income immediately creates an increase in consumption. Because then your lifestyle becomes a machine that needs to be constantly fed. And this is why the first $10,000 isn't really about $10,000. It's about creating distance. Distance between your income and your lifestyle. If you make $5,000 a month and spend $4,950, you're financially fragile even though the income might look decent. But if you make $5,000 and build a lifestyle that costs $4,000, there's a $1,000 gap. That gap is where savings live. That's where options come from. That's where financial breathing room starts. And once Jake understands this, he stops asking a different question. Instead of asking, how can I make more money? He starts asking, how much of my income actually needs to become lifestyle? That's a much more powerful question. Because earning more can help. A higher salary can absolutely make saving easier. But if every raise gets converted into a more expensive lifestyle, the problem simply moves forward. Imagine Jake receives another $500 a month after a raise. He could upgrade his apartment, upgrade his car, eat out more, increase his subscriptions. Or he could keep most of his old lifestyle and allow that extra money to become the gap. Suddenly, $500 a month isn't exciting. It's powerful. Over a year, that's $6,000. Add another $300 a month that he stops losing to unnecessary lifestyle inflation. And suddenly the number becomes much larger. He doesn't need to become a monk. He doesn't need to stop enjoying his life. He simply stops allowing every extra dollar to disappear. And something strange happens. The first $10,000 starts getting easier. Not because Jake discovered a secret investment. Not because he stopped buying coffee. Not because he suddenly became obsessed with budgeting apps. He simply stopped letting his lifestyle automatically expand every time his income did. And then he reaches $3,000. That feels different. At $500 in savings, a car repair can destroy the entire account. At $3,000, it's painful, but survivable. Then $5,000. Now an emergency doesn't immediately become a credit card balance. And eventually, Jake reaches $10,000. The number itself isn't magical, but the feeling is. One afternoon, his car needs a $1,500 repair. A year earlier, that bill would have been a disaster. He would have stared at his bank account, considered using a credit card, maybe delayed the repair, and spent the next few months trying to recover. Now, he doesn't like the bill, but he can pay it. That's what the first meaningful cash cushion changes. It doesn't make you rich. It makes you harder to knock over. And that is the part people often miss about the first $10,000. It's not just money. It's breathing room. It's the difference between an emergency being an inconvenience and an emergency becoming a financial crisis. It's the difference between taking a job because you desperately need the paycheck and taking a job because you actually want it. It's the difference between using a credit card to survive and using money you've already saved. But there's another important lesson in Jake's story. He didn't need to hate his life to save. He didn't have to eliminate every restaurant. He didn't have to stop traveling. He didn't have to drive a terrible car forever. He simply had to become conscious of what his lifestyle was costing him. Because the American dream isn't necessarily the problem. Wanting a nice home isn't the problem. Wanting a reliable car isn't the problem. Enjoying dinner with friends isn't the problem. Buying things that make your life better isn't the problem. The hidden cost appears when the lifestyle becomes automatic. When every raise becomes a nicer apartment. When every bonus becomes a vacation. When every stressful day becomes a delivery order. When every social invitation becomes an expense. When every purchase is justified by the monthly payment instead of the total cost. And when tomorrow's money is constantly being spent today. That's when the dream starts working against you. Jake thought he needed to make more money. What he actually needed was a bigger gap between what he earned and what his lifestyle consumed. And that gap doesn't have to be enormous at first. Even a few $100s can change the direction of your finances. Because the first $10,000 is rarely lost in one giant purchase. It's lost $20, $40, and $100 at a time. It's hidden inside the car payment that seemed affordable, the apartment upgrade that was only a few $100s more, the subscriptions you stopped noticing, the delivery orders you considered too small to matter, the weekend plans you didn't want to say no to, the purchases that felt affordable because someone turned the price into a monthly payment. And the lifestyle upgrades that happened so gradually you never noticed your definition of normal changing. The goal isn't to live like you're broke. The goal is to stop spending like your future income is guaranteed to arrive and already belongs to someone else. Because once you create that gap, something changes. Your paycheck stops disappearing. Your savings account starts growing. And eventually, you look at that $10,000 and realize something surprising. You weren't really trying to save $10,000. You were trying to buy yourself something much more valuable, the ability to breathe when life gets expensive. So the next time you look at your bank account and wonder where the money went, don't just look at the individual purchases. Look at the lifestyle those purchases created. Because the biggest threat to your first $10,000 might not be one huge mistake. It might be the perfectly normal life you're paying for without ever asking how much it's actually costing you.